And some rooms never let their guests leave in peace tonight. You'll hear 3 terrifying horror stories that will haunt you forever. Mirrors have always been a symbol of reflection, mystery, and sometimes even superstition. For centuries, cultures across the world have warned against staring too long into a mirror at night, but for 16-year-old Emily, those warnings felt like nothing more than ghost stories told to frighten children. It was the summer of 1995 in rural Pennsylvania when Emily and her friends decided to play a so-called harmless game called Bloody Mary. They gathered in her grandmother's old farmhouse, where an antique, full-length mirror stood in the attic. The mirror was said to have belonged to Emily's great-grandmother, who mysteriously died in that same house. Despite her grandmother's strict warnings never to use the mirror after midnight, the girls giggled at the idea of conjuring a spirit. What harm could come from chanting a silly name in the dark? They didn't know then that some mirrors don't just reflect, they hold on to the past. The attic smelled of dust and age, with cobwebs hanging in every corner. Emily lit a single candle, its flickering flame casting strange shadows on the walls. Her 2 friends, Sarah and Megan, huddled close, their voices trembling as they dared Emily to lead the chant. At exactly midnight, Emily stood before the tall, silver-framed mirror. She could see her own reflection, but it looked somehow darker, less alive. Taking a deep breath, Emily whispered the infamous words, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." For a moment, nothing happened. The silence was so heavy it pressed on their chests. Then, the candle flickered violently as if caught in a gust of unseen wind. Sarah swore she saw movement in the mirror's glass, a shadowy figure shifting just behind Emily's reflection. Megan laughed nervously, insisting it was just a trick of the light. But Emily knew she hadn't moved, yet her reflection's lips had curled into a faint smile. Fear washed over the 3 girls, but Emily couldn't look away. The reflection in the mirror was no longer perfectly aligned with her movements. When she tilted her head, the reflection lagged a moment too long before mimicking her. When she blinked, her reflection's eyes remained wide open, staring directly back at her. Sarah grabbed Emily's arm, begging her to stop the game. Megan nervously suggested blowing out the candle and leaving the attic, but Emily, paralyzed by both fear and fascination, stood frozen. Then the reflection leaned closer, pressing its pale face against the inside of the mirror, as though trying to push through the glass. Its eyes were not Emily's anymore. They were sunken, dark voids that seemed to swallow the flickering candlelight. And that smile, it stretched impossibly wide, filled with a malicious glee that didn't belong to Emily at all. Suddenly, the glass rippled as though disturbed water, and a faint sound echoed inside the attic. It wasn't a human voice but a whisper, soft and chilling, calling Emily's name. In my mind, her friends screamed, begging her to run, but Emily's feet felt nailed to the floor. The figure inside the mirror raised a pale hand, pressing it against the glass. Emily gasped as her reflection's skin looked rotten, the nails black and claw-like. The candle's flame shot higher, almost burning out. In that terrifying moment, Megan rushed forward, blowing out the candle with a desperate puff of breath. Instantly, the attic plunged into darkness. The mirror's surface snapped back to normal, and the whispering ceased. The girls bolted down the stairs, hearts racing, and swore never to speak of that night again. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that maybe blowing out the candle hadn't ended the ritual, only trapped something inside the mirror again. For the next few weeks, Emily tried to ignore the sense of dread that followed her. At first, it was little things. Her reflection seemed slightly delayed when she brushed her teeth, or her mirrored smile curved in ways her real one didn't. Sometimes, when she walked past the mirror too quickly, she swore she saw someone else staring back, a pale, gaunt version of herself with those same void-like eyes. Her friends avoided her house altogether, claiming the attic mirror gave them nightmares. Even her grandmother seemed uneasy, scolding Emily harshly when she caught her lingering near the mirror again. "That mirror is not yours to play with," she warned. "It's been here longer than me, longer than any of us. Don't let it see you too much." Emily laughed it off, but deep down, the unease was gnawing at her. Something inside her knew she had awakened something that night. One night, as Emily prepared for bed, she caught her reflection moving on its own again. She stood still, terrified, as her mirrored self tilted its head and mouthed words she couldn't hear. Trembling, Emily leaned closer. The reflection's lips formed the words, "Let me out." She stumbled back, her chest tightening with panic. The mirror's surface rippled once again, and this time she saw hands pressing from the inside, leaving smudges on the glass as though a body was trapped within. Emily screamed for her grandmother, but when she rushed into the room, the mirror was perfectly normal again. Her grandmother's face turned pale as if she knew this day would come. "I told you, child," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The mirror is a doorway, and once open, it does not close easily." Desperate, Emily begged her grandmother to explain. Reluctantly, the old woman revealed that her own mother, Emily's great-grandmother, had become obsessed with the mirror. She believed it was a portal to the spirit world, a way to communicate with the dead. But the more she used it, the more it consumed her, until the night she was found lifeless in front of it, her face twisted in terror. The family sealed the mirror in the attic, hoping to contain whatever lingered within. But the curse never left, it only waited. Emily's heart pounded as she realized she had repeated the same mistake. She hadn't just played a harmless game. She had given the spirit permission to see her, to know her. And now, it wanted more than just a reflection. Over the next days, Emily's health began to deteriorate. Dark circles formed under her eyes and she grew weaker, plagued by nightmares of being pulled into the mirror. In her dreams, she was always trapped inside, banging against the glass as her reflection. No, the thing lived her life outside. Sarah and Megan visited her once, but they quickly left, disturbed by the coldness in her voice and the strange way her eyes seemed to follow them unnaturally. Alone and desperate, Emily's grandmother tried to cover the mirror with a heavy cloth, but every morning, the fabric lay on the floor as though something had pushed it away. Emily no longer recognized herself. When she looked in the mirror, the reflection's smile grew sharper, more sinister, while her real lips barely moved. The final night came during a thunderstorm. Emily sat alone in her room, staring at the mirror as lightning illuminated the glass. She could hear the whispers again, louder this time, chanting her name over and over. She tried to resist, but her body moved on its own, walking closer to the mirror. Her reflection stretched out its hands, and this time, Emily's hands rose to meet them. The glass felt cold and wet beneath her fingertips, like ice water. Suddenly, with a deafening crack, the mirror split open like the surface of a pond. Emily screamed as a force pulled her inward. Her grandmother burst into the room just in time to see Emily vanish into the glass. Her face twisted in terror as the mirror sealed shut once more. Only her reflection remained, smiling wickedly from the other side. The next morning, the house was eerily quiet. Emily's grandmother called the police, but they never found the girl. All that remained was the mirror, standing tall and spotless, as though nothing had happened. To outsiders, Emily was just another missing person case, unsolved and forgotten. But her grandmother knew the truth: the mirror had claimed her, just as it had claimed her mother decades earlier. For years afterward, visitors to the farmhouse reported strange occurrences, seeing Emily's pale face in the mirror, hearing whispers in the night, or feeling icy hands brush against their skin. The mirror still stands in that attic today, covered with a heavy cloth, waiting for the next curious soul to call upon it. And if you ever find yourself in front of a mirror at midnight, be careful whose name you call, because sometimes what looks back at you is not you at all.